Okay, we're going to continue, and I think we need to get to a stage whereby we've aired a lot of frustrations, a lot of worries, a lot of fears, a lot of concerns. And I certainly have been incredibly impressed by the contributions you've all made in those particular areas. And what I'd ask you to do is to pick out something in particular that you particularly want a call to action over. And it may be that you may need to give it further explanation, but give us what is that call to action. What is it that you want people to do as a result of these issues? Because if not, we're just going to be accused of whinging and whining without actually coming up with any action plan about what we think should happen. Shall we start with you, Steve?
Yeah, so I would just encourage the public to ignore the politics, ignore what the politicians are saying, and trust in what you see in your schools. Now, I'd ask you to be really supportive, but you can obviously ask your head teacher and teachers what's going on, but empathise with them of what a difficult job they've got. And then speak out. You have to speak out to our politicians, to our councillors, to our Devon leaders. Because if you don't speak out, we're going to continue to be managing a decline in our education system. We can demand and expect better. So speak out, say it how it is, be honest, and let's do things better in education.
So picking up from the phrase that was used by Christopher earlier, we need to get parents to trade in the truth.
Absolutely, absolutely. And recognise that schools are going to find it hard to be honest with parents. So look at what you can see, be empathetic. You can support your schools, can't you? There's ways to support them and help them. But the best way that you can do that is to challenge leaders and those that are making decisions to ask for better for our children and our schools.
Okay, in terms of the call to action, who would like to go next in terms of what you think the call to action should be?
We only get one chance at an education. And at the moment, our children are being shortchanged. So my call to action is this. If you are a teacher and you're in the National Education Union, make sure that you vote in our Save Education campaign. If you are a head teacher, please help us to make sure that we are able to go into your schools and talk to the teachers and talk to them about how we can save education. And if you're a parent, remember that it is the lack of funding that is the issue. It is not the schools and the teachers themselves. And your teachers of your children are helping you to help save education for your child.
Okay, I think the whole idea of saving education not only for their child, but saving education as a whole nation. Who would like to pick up the next baton?
Okay, yep. Right. So yes, as you can see, we're all from different unions, but we've come together because we feel so strongly about this issue. And it doesn't matter. It's not again about teachers and teaching assistants. We care passionately about education. It's about our students, it's about supporting parents, it's about supporting communities. So please, can you write to your MPs? Again, I will be sending out an email with a template to our members, anyone in schools. We can forward this around so that you can sign it and send it back to us. It's really imperative that we get as many names and voices to support our call so that we can show Devon how serious this situation is, how important and vital it is that we come together and ask for their support too in not taking away vital funds.
I think in terms of where we are, I think consolidating some of these messages, particularly in this call to action, will become an imperative. They'll become the high lines. Okay, the final one is Christopher.
So my call to action, I think, links to a phrase that I've always gone by. If not me, then who? And if not now, then when? And these are national systematic failures. And it might seem daunting of what can I do as my little part. And my little part is I'm going to implore you to look at what you can do. And my little bit that I can do, what can I do now? And if not me, then who? My when is now. And I'm going to be looking at challenging that the special educational needs funding and the debt. And although that debt's been wiped, that transfer of 0.5% is a real statement of it's moving away from the general population and the pens and pencils money going to high needs. The high needs just needs to be funded properly in itself. We don't need to be moving away from the basics that keep the lights on, the rooms warm, and pencil and paper on the table and in the hands of children. So that's what I'm going to do. And I would call for any leaders out there to not support any further or future transfers of that 0.5. It might sound a small percentage, half a percentage, but it's the message behind it. And my call to arms is the children deserve better. They need better funding. And it's not 0.5, it's 100% better.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, in terms of our allocated time, we've still got a little bit more time. What I want to do is just to take 5 and just go back over in your brains and think to yourself, okay, what have we not communicated that we still feel that is essential, that we should be saying, that we can pick up? Because the process is here. And if you had the now and the precious time, and I recognize and realize the cost of this precious time now of you all being here, what is it we now need? What is such an imperative? What have we missed and what are we missing? Is it so blatantly obvious that we're missing it?
Well, as we said, we're losing the heart of our schools. And if we want the beating heart of our schools to continue, then we can't expect schools to deliver a world-class education based on goodwill alone. We need people, and we need experienced, supported, motivated people who are funded to be able to give that education that, to our children and to our students. That's what I would say for me.
But in the same way as during the pandemic, and I would want to support you, because during the pandemic, people were prepared to stand out in the street and applaud what it is that people were doing. I don't actually think, and we need to get to a situation where somehow we need to be able to mobilize the parents of those children to actually recognize that they need to get out there and they need to use their voice and the strength of their voice to create the havens which become so formative and so precious to their child's upbringing and their development. I look back upon it with nothing but incredible affection. I mean, I had a pretty unique situation. My wife was a teacher, and it so happened that she taught in a school, a junior school, where her own mother taught in the same school. And in the end, both of my kids ended up going to that particular school. So they were not only taught by their mother, they were also taught by their grandmother. And they used to come home and maintain that decorum around school. And I used to have to actually understand that every day they couldn't say mum in the middle of class, and their grandmother, they couldn't say grandma or whatever in the middle of a class, but they were being taught by 2 family members. Now, some people may say that's very, very unhealthy or whatever else it may be. It was interesting from my point of view, just to reflect back to you as teachers, is that my daughter, partway through that, decided that she didn't want to be called, she was actually christened as Natalie. She wanted to be called Kim. And it took me almost 2 years to relearn her name. And so in school, she had to go through the process of teaching everybody about how to use her new name, which I had to learn about. And she used to refer to everybody by their surname. So it was Mr. Humphreys or Mrs. Humphreys or whatever, never Mum or Mrs. Howell, as her grandmother was called. And so that kind of bit. So it's so cemented and was so influential and has become so influential in my life. And the one thing that I'm left with as my parting gift, and thanks to all of you, is my children have been incredibly successful. And I mean incredibly successful, both of them. Unfortunately, they both have emigrated because they don't see that opportunity of success here. They both emigrated, but their success is totally attributable to what the contribution was of school and education. And I always remember going to a presentation where somebody said, "Oh, you want to know about me? Look at my children." And I would say the same to anybody. If you want to judge me, look at my children. I'm inordinately proud of them. I have an amazing relationship with them. I speak to them every week, and we have to speak on FaceTime. But that relationship is the most precious thing of all. So please, in the havens that you all work in, please recognise what an extraordinary job you do.
The government are saying that there's never been more money going into schools, never been more funding. Technically, that's true. Is it true of Devon? Possibly not. There's more money coming in the front door, but actually there's certainly much, much more going out of the back door. The funding reality in Devon is stark. We're already funded differently, unfairly. The pitch isn't level, and it's getting worse.
The government will tell you that the white paper is going to solve everything, but in fact it is unworkable. The reality is constrained by teacher shortages, high inflation and funding that only partially offsets long-term cuts. We need your support.
The government are saying that schools can survive if we make more efficiencies. But the reality is that schools are already cut to the bone. You need to believe the people who are on the ground, who see on a day-to-day basis how education is breaking because we do not have the funding for it.
So the government is saying that standards have never been higher in schools, which is true, and that's thanks to the dedication and hard work and commitment of school staff. The reality of what we're seeing is that that is not sustainable because we are being asked to do more with fewer resources. There are more staff leaving the profession. There are more children who are unhappy. There are more children in poverty. So we need to expect better from our funding for our Devon children.
Can I just ask all of you just to dwell for a moment and speak about, because I talk a lot about working with companies and talking around what I do in terms of other work, and one of the things that people are talking about is the experience of people dealing with companies and about how they feel. How does it feel in a school at the moment? If you were to use headline words, how does it feel? What's the climate like in terms of what does it feel like?
Yeah.
If you came into my school, it would feel like an oasis in the desert. I think when people look wider into society, they come as a place of sanctuary and it's lush and vibrant, but the water is drying up and that water is funding. The oasis is shrinking and people are tending and nurturing and caring and doing their best with what they've got. But it's hard to keep the sounds away.
Okay, sounds pretty dramatic. Okay, moving around.
That's good.
And I think the way that I visualise it is a battlefield where you will walk into classes and you won't see the external battle that teachers are having, the internal conflict, thinking about how they are having to meet rising needs, how they're being told that there could be redundancies, that there's going to be more workload and expectation and on them, but without the money to support them to do it. And for that, having the, but all the time, having a smile on their face, working their hardest to give the children that are in front of them the education that they deserve.
In schools, you have a group of educators who are highly skilled and highly passionate about their role. They went into education because they believe strongly in the value of education. But there is a lot of frustration out there because there are a lot of people within education who are unable to properly do their job because their lived reality is that the funding is not there.
Yeah, I'm going to say personally, I feel very demoralised by the situation in education at the moment, because I can't deliver for my children the things that I want to, and these are things that are out of my control, and that feels really hard to kind of grasp. And I know that I'm not the only person that feels like that.
Okay, I don't want to add anything to it, because I don't think there's anything to add, except to say that I do think you all work in havens, and I do think you work in havens, and I think the kind of level of emotional support that you have to give in order to sustain that, it's like dealing for me like in an ailing company and trying to support you as the leader and the capability of the leader within that organization. But I do think there's some very, very powerful stuff that you've dealt with.